2024 may have started out pretty rough for the AAA sphere and the newly founded quadruple A sphere. Everyone point and laugh at Ubisoft. But if there's one avenue of the gaming industry that has actually been crushing it so far this year, it's the indie and double A sphere. Games like Palworld and Helldivers 2 have proven that there is so much money to be made with a fun first project that doesn't demand $70 plus microtransactions from the player. Unlike some other people I know, 2024 has also seemingly been the year that Sony officially walks away from their strict console exclusivity with first-party games, but more on that a little later. The official sales numbers of the first couple months of 2024 were revealed the other day, and unsurprisingly, Helldivers 2 absolutely crushed it, but what was a tad surprising was the fact that the PC version of the game made up nearly 60% of the copies sold, which is going to be absolutely unignorable for Sony going forward. The news was first reported on March 21st, sorry I'm getting to this a little late, and according to the data, Helldivers 2 was the top-selling game of the first 2 months of 2024 in the United States, which is also super impressive given the fact that it only launched on the 8th of February. And the total dollar sales for its launch month were the 7th highest in the history of Sony-published games in the US, which is insane, because it's not like this was a major Sony IP, you know? It's not God of War, it's not Uncharted, it's not a single-player cinematic third-person action game, and yet it's one of Sony's best-performing games to date. Gosh, gee willikers, I wonder if that has something to do with the fact that it launched on the PC day and date. But the main argument that a lot of PlayStation diehards have used against PC ports going day and date is the fact that PC gamers allegedly don't buy games, and all we do is pirate all the games and we never buy games. Never mind the fact that the mere existence of Steam should be all the proof you need to see that PC gamers buy games in fucking droves, and if nobody on this platform actually bought games, then companies would probably stop putting games on this platform. But interestingly, the opposite seems to be happening, and more AAA companies seem to be putting more stock into the PC. I wonder if that's because PC gamers actually do indeed buy games. There's also just a bit of comedy in the fact that Sony published a game and then PC gamers bought it more than Sony gamers did. And naturally, this news that the PC version of Helldivers 2 was the best-selling one struck a chord with many of the PlayStation faithful on Twitter, so I'm going to share with you some of my favorite meltdowns because they're funny and I think they're entertaining. So get comfy, grab some coffee, and let's spread some democracy to some brain-dead PlayStation fanboys who, from the looks of things, don't even really buy the PlayStation games they brag about. And all of these are going to be responses to this tweet, by the way, just so we're all on the same page. No Hey Natty says nearly. PlayStation 5, 54 million. How many Steam users again? Ear emoji. Nice ratio, by the way. You're doing terrific. That's right, folks. When you can't win the copies sold argument, bring up the user base percentage argument, because that matters somehow. Like, just to be clear, you saw that the PC bought more copies of the PlayStation game than the PlayStation gamers did, and instead of just being like, oh, that's interesting, or, oh, I guess a lot of PC gamers buy games, you decided to wrap your brain in a pretzel until you could twist this into a dunk on the PC, and the best you could do is that the PlayStation has 54 million users, which is less than Steam, so therefore the lower amount of copies sold on PlayStation is a bigger percentage of the user base. This is such a fucking reach, it's insane. Like, yes, Steam has way more users than the PlayStation, but you know what that means? It means there's more variety. It means there's more kinds of gamers on this platform. It means there's more games competing for every gamer's attention. It means there's less AAA first-party obsession over here. And yet, Steam still bought Sony's game more than you did. Isn't that interesting? Also, fun fact, Sony doesn't give a fuck what percentage of Steam's user base bought their game as long as people bought the game. Money talks. Console war bragging points do not. The PC supported the Sony game more than the Sony players did. Get over it. Maybe if you played games instead of whining on Twitter, this wouldn't have happened. At Big Joe says 60% in February. It very explicitly says in February. Okay. So, also, if you think a console game is going to have longer-term sales power than a PC game, you've got another thing coming. Like, anyone who knows anything about console and PC markets knows that PC games tend to have a longer shelf life. Even as we speak, Helldivers 2 is the number 2 game on Steam's top seller list. While on PlayStation, it's down to number 5, and I don't mean to sound like that's a bad thing. Obviously, number 5 on the PlayStation Store is still very impressive for a paid game that's almost 2 months old. I'm not trying to poo-poo any of this, but the point I'm making is that the point you're trying to make here is an actually a winning one, because if close to 60% of the copies sold by the end of February were on the PC, do you think that number is going to get bigger or smaller in March? Because my money is on bigger. Also, change your username. I'm a bigger Joe than you. Bash Lives replies, great to see. Day and date PlayStation games to PC incoming. And then Reverse Psycho responds to them and references the fact that Horizon Forbidden West was cracked in 30 seconds when the PC port came out, and I'm so tired of hearing this point. It's so stupid. The fact that you guys still think this is a point. I mentioned this in a different recent video. This one, despite Horizon 2's PC port getting cracked 30 seconds into its release, it still managed to sit in the Steam top 5 bestsellers, right next to Dragon's Dogma 2. Piracy is inevitable on this platform, but the PC market is more than big enough to make up for that. The point you're trying to make against the PC by bringing up the fact that Horizon 2 was cracked, it's actually a point for the PC, and you're just too short-sighted to realize it, because despite the 30-second crack, Horizon sold rather well on PC. Also, I'd made this point in that Horizon video I referenced as well, but have you ever considered the fact that maybe if Horizon was cracked in 30 seconds, it's because the DRM was very light and not very high effort, because Sony isn't actually all that concerned with the piracy rate? Have you ever considered that? Beautiful Horizon at PS4 Revolution says PC gamers got nothing better to play, eh? I love this. So we've gone from PC gamers are begging for PlayStation games to PC gamers don't buy PlayStation games, and we have now arrived at how dare the PC gamers buy the PlayStation games. There's something poetic about this, right? You guys bragged about PlayStation games for literal years, and now that PC gamers are buying them more than PlayStation gamers, the dude named PS4 Revolution with a Horizon Zero Dawn profile picture is talking shit about PC gamers because they're, checks notes, playing the PlayStation games that you guys like so much. I mean, shit, someone's got to do it, right? It's not like you guys are. Back to this tweet from Bosch Lives, where he says, great to see day and date PlayStation games going to PC incoming, because he got another salty response from Brandon, who says, for live service games, yeah, it only makes sense. First party non-live service games won't be day one on PC for quite some time, maybe by the end of the PS6 if there aren't consoles after that.
Is that a joke? Tell me you're joking.
I love how everyone is an armchair executive on Twitter, and before you call me an armchair executive on YouTube, at least my predictions actually have weight to them, and my predictions, come true, because they're based on reality, and they're not even really predictions, they're just obvious observations that anyone with a brain can notice. Because before Helldivers 2, literally every PC YouTuber, myself included, was saying that when Sony puts games day and date on PC, that their sales will get a huge boost because lots of PC gamers will buy it, largely as the result of the fact that they would now be including a community in their launch hype that was never going to buy their hardware in the first place. Delayed PC ports only reduce your buying base on the PC, because the longer you wait to release the games on PC, the more games come out and steal your thunder, and the more time PC gamers have to see videos and streams of your game, and then maybe even feel like they don't need to pay you for it, because the story's been spoiled for them. But if you include the PC players from day one, many of us will happily give you some fat stacks for your product, but here comes Brandon, looking at the evidence of this and proclaiming that day and date for other Sony games is not going to happen until the end of the PlayStation 6. Because ? You think Sony is looking at the insane profits of Helldivers 2 and the ridiculous amount of money the PC player base has given them, and you seriously think Sony's reaction to this is going to be to get everyone into the office and say, alright guys, we're making a bunch of money off PC gamers, let's wait another 15 years to do more of that. What? The PC gamers don't buy games crowd is very quiet, you'll love to see it. Denzel responds, you can't pirate a live service game as far as I know. Look, even if your statement was 100% true, this game sold tremendously on the PC, but you're implying that only happened because you can't pirate it. So you think all the people who pirate games just threw up their hands and said, well, guess I'll pay real money for this one. You really think that's what happened? You think that PC gamers are rampant pirates who don't pay for games. But when this paid live service game comes out that just cannot be pirated because it's protected by the magic of Christ, you think all those rampant pirates just said, we'll play fair this time, and bought proper copies in such massive numbers that they made up 60% of the buying population.
That makes no sense.
Look, do PC gamers pirate games? Yeah, some of them do. But with the sheer number of PC gamers active in the world, publishers are willing to accept that there's going to be a chunk of pirated copies of their game because they are going to make up for it with way more people buying proper copies of the game. And Helldivers 2 was a success on PC because it did most everything right, buggy launch and DRM notwithstanding. It was a big, highly marketed game that included the PC in the hype campaign instead of locking the game away from us for a year or two before handing it over, and it didn't launch for $70, and it was fun. Helldivers 2 shows you how much money there is to be made by including the PC in the pre-launch hype, and by meeting the consumer halfway and not trying to force them to drop $70 for a game with barely any gameplay in it. Helldivers 2 did everything right, and that is why it is successful. But if we're using your logic, the success of this game is actually supposed to be attributed to the fact that you can't pirate a live service game. Beautiful. Never change. EG responds to the news and says Sony is about to piss off more PS5 elitists. PC sales are everything now. But then 10STSOU1 says, what the hell are you talking? They already said games as a service is day one on PC, and this split means nothing. Over 200 million gaming PCs in the US alone, compared to a 55 million PS5 install base. I hate this argument so much. It's so stupid. Who cares? On Steam, PlayStation only gets 70%. On PSN, they get 100% plus PS plus sub plus hardware. They made more from Helldivers 2 on PS5 than PC. And of course, this guy's bio is just PlayStation gamer. That's his whole bio. Look, I don't want to repeat myself with everything I said to the last guy who brought up the user base percentage difference thing, but I'll just say this. If PlayStation prides itself on having an awesome curated experience for the people who buy the console, and yet you can only get a little chunk of those 50 million PS5 owners to buy Helldivers 2, I really don't think that's a bragging point. Like, I really hate the user base install percentage argument, but if you really want to get sniffy about it, it's really not even a winning one for PlayStation. And if you take a step back and stop being a child, maybe the people who buy PS5s are just gamers looking to buy games. And maybe there's way more gamers on PC with more games to play, so obviously the percentage of them playing Helldivers 2 is smaller than the percentage of PS5 owners playing that, but like I said before, that means fucking nothing because Sony is selling more copies on the PC. Is Sony making more money per copy on the PS5? Yes, totally. But with how many more copies they're selling on the PC, you have to wonder just how much they're going to care about that difference and how much revenue they take home, especially since, as I've established many times, the vast majority of those PC sales are sales you wouldn't have gotten at all if you made PC gamers wait a year or two to join the fun. But seriously, you guys need to stop bringing up the size of the user bases on Steam and PS5. It's just a bad argument. It's such a fucking reach, and really, I don't get what you're even trying to point out with it, Like, genuinely, who gives a shit? What point are you making? The PC outsold you. And even if you do want to make the argument that that's because the PC has more users, aren't you just telling on yourself then? Because if the PS5 really was that awesome, wouldn't the PC guys have just jumped over to your platform and made that 50 million larger and kind of tightened the gap between PlayStation and Steam? That doesn't seem to be happening, good sir. Skeletor says 56% is not 60%. Yeah, that's why the headline says nearly 60%. The exact number is 56, but rounded up to the nearest good-looking multiple of 5, that's 60. Like, really? This is what we're grabbing onto now? Nearly 60%? You mean 50%? Wait, hang on. The number is 56%, and the headline says nearly 60%, but you're taking issue with that because you think it's supposed to be 50%. But 60 is closer to 56 than 50 is. You think the number in the headline is wrong, but your number is even more wrong. Do you know how numbers work? What? This one just says community notes in response to this tweet reminder. This tweet where there is literally nothing that can be community noted. Because, again, 56% is nearly 60%. If you're not summoning community notes for that, I legitimately have no idea what you're doing this for. This is stupid. Marcus says, really, dude? This is March. March! That's right, kids, we can't have sales numbers this early in the year. We are in the month of March, and therefore the sales numbers of games that came out up to this point are not worth talking about. Delete the article, sir. We should all be celebrating Helldivers 2, you know? And for the most part, we are. But the amount of salt coming from the people who should be the happiest about this is just comical. PlayStation has a raging success on its hands, and it's successfully managed to make a ton of money off a platform that was never going to buy its hardware or enter its ecosystem, and you're upset about this. Sony is going to use the money it gets from the PC player base to make the PlayStation brand stronger and improve its ecosystem, and you're mad about it. Because someone other than a PS5 owner got to play the game with the Sony logo slapped on the box. And that's the only reason. You people are fucking pathetic. Toodles.